Ozark Highlands Radio is brought to you by the Ozark Folk Center State Park in Mountain View, Arkansas, a wonderful way to enjoy yesterday. On the web at ozarkfolkcenter.com.
Hey everybody, this is Dave Smith, host of Ozark Highlands Radio. This week we'll be interviewing and listening to the New York musical duo Jay Ungar and Molly Mason, as well as the Lazy Goat String Band. Feature host Brooks Blevins tells us the strange story of Connie Franklin, and we'll take a trip down into the vault with Mark Jones for a classic performance from Jimmy Driftwood. This week on Ozark Highlands Radio. Folks who watched Ken Burns' documentary, The Civil War, on PBS, remember the haunting theme music, Ashokan Farewell, written by New York State musicians Jay Ungar and Molly Mason. Though he started out as a classical violinist, Jay has become a powerhouse in the old-time and contradance music scene, and is known worldwide as a writer of beautiful fiddle tunes and waltzes. Molly Mason is a terrific swing guitar player and a fine mandolinist as well. They recently visited the Ozark Folk Center State Park. Let's kick off their set with Fiddlin' Around This Town.
Left my home in the mountains, fiddling around this town. I'm just traveling fiddler, fiddle till the sun goes down. Plant my corn in the summertime, picking when the weather is hot. The corn grew thin, a house caved in, fiddling's all I've got. I'm just fiddling, I'm just fiddling around this town. I'm just fiddling, fiddling around this town. Fiddle, rosin a favorite bow. Sing this thing, finger in the string. Fiddling's all I know. I'm just fiddling, I'm just fiddling around this town. I'm just fiddling, fiddling around this town. Fiddling, I'm just fiddling around this town. I'm just fiddling, fiddling around this town. All right.
Jay, tell me a little bit about your musical career. How'd you start? When did you start playing music?
Well, when I was 6, I wanted to play the concertina, and I have no idea really why, but I was growing up in the Bronx, and I begged my parents for lessons, and it took him a year to give in and take me to a music teacher, but he didn't teach concertina. So he played a variety of different instruments for me, and when I heard the violin, I thought, well, that sounds the most like a concertina. If you can believe it, that's how I picked it. And then I was immersed in classical music for years as a young kid. But then I went to the High School of Music and Art, an incredibly special place in New York City. And it was a real savior for me because I was kind of losing it as a high school kid. My grades were going down. I wasn't interested in school anymore. I mean, in junior high. And then when I got to high school, music and art, we had 3 periods of music a day, every day, and 4 some years. So there was music theory, an instrument class, orchestra, and string quartet usually is what I had every day as part of that. It was amazing. We went till 4:30, but I didn't mind staying longer. So it was there that a friend of mine introduced me to Flatt and Scruggs, Bill Monroe, and old-time music. He had an LP collection, and you couldn't really buy this stuff. This was in the early 60s. In New York City, you couldn't find these records really. But I had a reel-to-reel recorder, and I made some copies of some of this stuff, and then I found a library that had some of it. Then I got out of high school, and I met a banjo player, and that was all downhill from there.
Yeah.
Gonna tell you about a picking party down on the lower 40, back at Grandma's place. She invited friends and neighbors 100 miles around. I wish you could have seen her face. Oh, when the folks started showing up, mandolins and picnic lodges, have a big old time, picking tunes that could tug your heartstrings, singing songs that could make you cry. It was a rough-cut rhapsody, full of homemade harmony, a music that could set you free. It was a backyard symphony. Well, we pushed back the chairs, danced a few squares, lasted into the next day. My Auntie Jane, the caller, how she could holler, she didn't need to use a PA. Now I was just a kid, dancing's what I did, step it up to beat the band. The music helped to make the magic when I held my darling by the hand. It was a rough-cut rhapsody, full of homemade harmony, full of homemade harmony, music that could set you free. It was a backyard symphony. A dozen fiddles, pack of guitars, and Molly played the old string bass. There was old songs, new songs, happy songs, true songs, kids running every place. Then it got kinda mellow, Mama played her cello, Dad was on the edge of tears. She played an old country waltz, and I saw folks dancing close, hadn't held each other that way for years. It was a rough-cut rhapsody, homemade, full of homemade harmony, music that could set you free. It was a backyard symphony. used to play the fiddle, I danced quite a little. Now I play the radio. I'm getting older, I'm ailing, my body is failing, my eyes and ears are starting to go. But regardless of age, there are things that don't change. If I live to be 110, the memory's deep in my heart, and any time that I want, I'll close my eyes and be there again. Come on now. It was a rough cut rhapsody, full of homemade harmony, music that could set you free. It was a backyard symphony. Sing it again. It was a rough cut rhapsody, full of homemade harmony. There was music that could set you free. It was a backyard symphony. By now you know it meant a lot to me. Our little backyard symphony.
What about you, Molly? How'd you get started?
Well, I had piano lessons as a kid, like many kids do, and enjoyed that for a while. But when I was about 11 or 12, I really wanted to play the guitar, learn to play the guitar. So my parents finally got me a guitar, and I took lessons from public TV, believe it or not. Every week I watched this show that came on public TV, Laura Weber out of California teaching guitar lessons, folk guitar. That was how I got my start. And when I was in my teens, my younger brother decided he wanted to be a fiddle player and learn how to play the fiddle. He got a violin and started lessons, and so we eventually started playing together. And
then your uncle Reynolds was
he was a
wonderful
fiddler.
fiddler.
Yep. For ever since he was a kid. So I grew up listening to him play the fiddle every now and then, and got inspired by that. So. Coming from the West Coast, I had the lucky opportunity to get to accompany Benny Thomason on a tour one time, and had another lucky break playing with the Powder Milk Biscuit Band on Prairie Home Companion back in its earlier pre-national days, when it was only around Minnesota and outlying states there.
You did that for about a year.
I did it for a year, yeah.
Back to old Yazoo, 'cause everything up here is new, and I can't stand it, I just must land it, so take me back to old Yazoo. Everything that you do, all those people got their eyes on you. It's so compelling, hear me yelling, take me back to old Yazoo. Just get your rice and beans, much better. If you don't like greens and ham, then get your ham and greens. How long do I have to wait? I'm standing at that station gate. I'm broken hearted, I've got to get started, so take me back to old Yazoo. Go.
Well, Molly, you're from Washington State,
I am.
and Jay, you're from New York City.
Yeah, originally, yeah.
Well, what happened? How'd you two get together?
How did that happen?
Oh, a fluke, I guess. I had an opportunity in my young years to make a trip to the East Coast. I'd never been east, and I hopped in the car and went on the journey. And once on the East Coast, the friend of mine that I went with ran into some relatives who had a house that was going to come up for sale, and they didn't want to leave it empty all winter, so they asked if we would want to stay there. And being young kids, we had nothing else to do, so we said sure. So that put me on the East Coast for long enough to find this folk club where this guy was performing.
Yeah, and we met at this little folk club called the Town Crier Cafe, which has moved 3 times but is still in operation in the Hudson Valley of New York. You're mine. 2 more times. Relax your mind. Relax your mind. It makes you feel so fine sometimes. Well, sometimes you like to relax your mind. Your call and response. Relax your mind. Relax your mind. It makes you feel so fine sometimes. Sometimes. Everyone, you've got to relax your mind. Your mind. We'll see you out at the CD table if you want to chat.
That was New York State musicians Jay Ungar and Molly Mason. They started out their set with Fiddlin' Around This Town, followed by Backyard Symphony, and finished their set with Take Me Back to Old Yazoo. You're listening to Ozark Highlands Radio. Welcome back to Ozark Highlands Radio. Now, Arkansas folklorist and author Brooks Blevins tells us the true story of Connie Franklin.
A visitor to Mountain View, Arkansas could be forgiven for thinking everyone in town plays an instrument or sings. Those jam sessions on the court square most any weekend night, and lots of midweek nights as well. Whenever the folk center doors are open, there's always some kind of musical show going on. And banners around town proclaim Mountain View the folk music capital of the world. Now, I suspect that's not an official designation. I don't recall the United Nations sponsoring a plebiscite on the issue, but Mountain View is a musical place. There's no denying it. Before the Arkansas Folk Festival was created in 1963, before the Ozark Folk Center opened 10 years later, this little Ozark town's brightest moment in the spotlight came way back in 1929. The attention focused on Mountain View that year wasn't due to any musical show, but to a trial. A murder trial, actually. But even then, music was never far from the action. Let's go back in the hills for the first of a 3-part series on music and murder in the Ozarks. The trial, which took place shortly before Christmas of 1929, featured 4 Stone County men accused of brutally slaying a drifter in the rural community of St. James, about 14 miles east of Mountain View, in a valley separating the rocky White River Hills from the steep and rugged Boston Mountains. The drifter, a young man known as Connie Franklin, had temporarily settled in St. James earlier that year and had gotten engaged to a local girl. But the real focus of the trial was not on the alleged killers, it was the murder victim himself, for there he was sitting in the gallery each day of the trial. He even testified in the trial of his own alleged murderers. At least this fellow claimed he was Connie Franklin when he showed up a few days before the trial was to begin. The alleged killers and their families were delighted to see him, and reporters covering the story detailed tearful reunions inside dank jail cells. But the teenager who had been betrothed to the man who had seemingly come back from the dead, this ghost of the Ozarks, declared him an imposter, and so did about half of St. James's citizens. So the trial, covered coast to coast and known far and wide as the Connie Franklin trial, was officially about an alleged murder. In reality, though, it was a referendum on one man's identity. Was the man who emerged from the shadows on the eve of trial the real Connie Franklin, or was he a charlatan, perhaps paid by the families of the accused men in a bold attempt to circumvent justice? The young drifter who was believed to have been killed played a mean harmonica, or French harp as it was called in those days. All could agree on that. And so it was that music came to play a role in identifying the Connie Franklin who came back from the dead. On Connie's first visit to Mountain View just days before the trial, the man who would have been his father-in-law couldn't make up his mind. He looks a lot like Connie, old Charlie admitted, but Charlie's daughter wasn't convinced, prompting Charlie to ask the man who claimed to be Connie Franklin to play a tune on the French harp. The Connie that Charlie remembered courting his daughter never went anywhere without his harmonica, but this fella who just showed up in Mountain View didn't have one on him. It wasn't a promising sign. Maybe he was an imposter. One of the lawyers sent a little boy down the street to buy a French harp, and when he returned a few minutes later, Connie took it, turned to Charlie and said, "What do you want me to play?" Everyone knew Charlie's favorite was Turkey in the Straw. Connie sheared down on it, and according to one reporter who witnessed the spectacle, played like he belonged on the Opry on Saturday nights. It was quite a performance, good enough to convince most onlookers that this had to be the one and only Connie Franklin. He was good, Charlie allowed, but he didn't quite slide over the notes the way the Connie he remembered had feathered them earlier that year. Subtle difference? Sure it was, but old Charlie knew his music. We'll pick up the story next week. For now, Billy Martin will take us back in the hills with his French harp rendition of old Charlie's favorite song, Turkey in the Straw.
Next, we're going to hear from a terrific old-time string band from right here in Mountain View, the Lazy Goat String Band. Lazy Goat guitarist Scott Blake tells me that their great sound comes not only from the fine musicianship of fiddler Emily Phillips and Scott's son, clawhammer banjo player Samuel Blake, but also from the fact that they all love and respect old-time music as well as each other. They're all three close friends, and that certainly comes through in their music.
Steve. I guess this will be our 4th season together, and I didn't have any backup. One season I asked Scott if he would back me up, and he said, yeah, and my son plays banjo too, do we all want to play? And I said, sure. And we had one performance, and it was a blast. And so we started performing regularly after that, and shortly came up with our name, the Lazy Goat String Band.
One morning while I was rambling around, I rambled on that Wild Bill Jones. He was walking and talking by my true lover's side, and I bid him leave her alone. He said his age was 21, too old for to be controlled. I drew my revolver from my side. I destroyed that poor boy's soul. He reeled and he staggered and fell to the ground. He gave one dying blow. I threw my arms around my true lover's neck, saying, darling, please come home. So pass around that long neck bottle. We'll go on a spree. Today was the last of old Wild Bill Jones, and tomorrow's the last of me. So bring me a pillow to lay my head upon, a hammer to beat out my brain. Oh, Wilder has ruined my body, poor boy. Pretty women has caused me great pain. Send me to prison for 20 long years. This poor boy is yearning to Jack Davy came riding by, whistling so merrily. He made the woods all around him ring, and he charmed the heart of the lady. Oh, he charmed the heart of the lady. Will you go with me, my pretty little one? Oh, go with me, my honey. I swear by the beard upon my chin that you'll never want for money. Oh, you'll never want for money. At night her husband he came home just a-looking for his lady. Her maid she spoke before she thought, said she's with Black Jack Davy. She's gone with Black Jack Davy. Oh, saddle me up my coal-black stud, my wife was not so speedy. Rode all day, I'll ride all night, now I'll bring home my lady, and I'll bring home my lady. He rode at night in broad daylight. He came to a river a-raging. There he spied his darling bride in the arms of Black Jack Davy, in the arms of Black Jack Davy. Pull off those long black gloves. They're made of Spanish leather. Get behind me on my horse, and we'll go home together, and we'll go home together. She pulled off her long black gloves, all made of Spanish leather, gave to him her lily white hand, and said goodbye forever. She said goodbye forever. Last night she slept in a warm feather bed between her husband and baby. Tonight she sleeps on the cocoa ground in the arms of Black Jack Davy, in the arms of Black Jack Davy.
Thank you. I'm gonna do a good old fiddle tune called Step Around Johnny.
We'll be right back with a trip to the vault with Mark Jones. You're listening to Ozark Highlands Radio. Welcome back. Since its inception in 1973, the Ozark Folk Center has hosted and recorded thousands of performances. We've got a vault here at the Folk Center where we keep these recordings of past shows. Mark Jones is our sound engineer here and is the keeper of the vault. Why don't we go down and see what he has for us this week? Hey, Mark, you down here?
Yeah, Dave, I'm over here. How are you? I'm so glad you come down here to see me.
Well, it's good to see you. I don't get down here often enough. But what have you got for us this week, Mark?
Oh, Dave, we've got a lot of treasures down here, hidden treasures, and I just blowed the dust off of this one. It is a recording of Jimmy Driftwood. Now, a lot of y'all don't know, but Jimmy was instrumental in starting the Ozark Folk Center. Now, he didn't do it all by himself in any way, but he did a big part of it.
I remember hearing Jimmy back in the 1950s when I was just a kid. He had some pretty popular songs at that time, didn't he?
He really did. And I came down here with my mom and dad, who have been in music business a long time, and got to meet Jimmy a long time ago, and then eventually got to work with him on a tour that we did. Rack and Sack went out, and we did like 36 colleges in a row, and it was a lot of fun. But one day, I remember we were practicing, and boy, Jimmy come in, he was so mad. Oh, he was burnt up. Somebody, and in his shows, he always invites people to his house to drink a Pepsi with him. And if he's not there, just go on in and get you one yourself.
I remember him saying that.
Yeah. Well, somebody helped themselves to a Pepsi and tuned every instrument that he had in the house up to standard pitch, wherever other people could play with him. Well, what Jimmy would do would find these old instruments, and he'd tune them to where it suited his voice. And so then he had to go through and retune all the instruments in the house that would match his voice. But he did a great job collecting, writing, and, one of the first things that he was ever known for as a teacher. And he more or less taught history and about the Ozarks. And this song that I've dug up for you today to listen to, and it's one I know you've heard before, but if you listen to the words, he taught elementary class American history, and it has a lot to do with American history, called the Battle of New Orleans.
Well, let's hear a little bit of that from a recording from 1973 at the Ozark Folk Center.
All the songs that I've had that have been big songs were songs that I composed to teach a class in school. I'm going to do one of those songs now. Some of you may want to join in with me. Well, in 1814, we took a little trip along with Colonel Jackson down the mighty Mississippi. Took a little bacon and we took a little beans, and we met the bloody British near the town of New Orleans. We fired our guns and the British kept a-coming. There wasn't nigh as many as there was a while ago. Fired once more and they began to running down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. We seed Mars Jackson walking down the street, talking to a pirate by the name of Gina Feet. Gave Gina a drink that he brung from Tennessee, and the pirate said he'd help us drive the British in the sea. The French said, Andrew, you'd better run, for Pakenham's a-coming with a bullet in his gun. Old Hickory said he didn't give a damn, gonna whip the britches off of Colonel Pakenham. We fired our guns and the British kept a-coming. There wasn't nigh as many as there was a while ago. Fired once more and they began to running down Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. Well, we looked down the river and we see the British come, and there must have been 100 of them beating on the drum. Stepped so high and they made the bugles ring, while we stood beside our cotton bales, didn't say a thing. Old Hickory said we could take 'em by surprise if we didn't fire a musket till we looked 'em in the eyes. We held our fire till we see their faces well, and opened up our squirrel guns and really gave 'em hell. We fired our guns and the British kept a-coming. There wasn't nigh as many as there was a while ago. Fired once more and they began to running down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. Well, we fired our cannon till the barrel melted down, so we grabbed the alligator and we fought another round. Filled his head with cannonballs and powdered his behind, and when we touched the powder off, the gator lost his mind. We'll march back home, but we'll never be content till we make old Hickory the people's president. And every time we think about the bacon and the bean, think about the fun we had way down in New Orleans. Fired our guns and the British kept a-coming. There wasn't nigh as many as there was a while ago. Fired once more and they began to running down Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. Well, they ran through the briars and they ran through the brambles and they ran through the bushes where a rabbit couldn't go. Ran so fast the hounds couldn't catch 'em down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. We fired our guns and the British kept a-coming. There wasn't nigh as many as there was a while ago. Fired once more and they began to running down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico.
That's Jimmy Driftwood from a live recording made in 1973 of the Battle of New Orleans. We'll close out this week's show with Jay Ungar and Molly Mason playing the Lover's Waltz, a Civil War medley, Vladimir's Steamboat, and the Wizard's Walk.
Lovely dancing. Thank you very much.
That does it for this week's show. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week with more great music and conversation. Until then, I'm Dave Smith. So long, everyone.
Ozark Highlands Radio is produced by Jeff Glover. Executive producer is Darren Dorton. Additional support for this program comes from Arkansas State Parks, a division of the Arkansas Department of Parks, Heritage, and Tourism, with 52 unique reasons to visit the natural state. On the web at arkansasstateparks.com. The Committee of 100 proudly supporting the Ozark Folk Center State Park since 1974. And by Stone Bank with roots in Mountain View, Arkansas. Stone Bank is a proud supporter of heritage musicians and small towns across America, with government-guaranteed loans for farmers, entrepreneurs, and communities. More information available at stonebank.com. For information on upcoming shows and events, we are on the web at ozarkhighlandsradio.com. Until next time, I'm Donna Farrar.